Hello, welcome once again to another of our new church hall devotionals. And as you can see, once again we're outside, and I actually want to show you something that's always been here but has been renewed, and that's the church boiler house. Now, as you'll see from the video, there are two new boilers placed inside, and a wonderful job at heating the church and the hall it does. But when we look at the boiler house, it reminds me of a story. You know, Charles Haddon Spurgeon was only a young man when he went to pastor in what was the New Park Street Chapel. It later became the Metropolitan Tabernacle, and there the Lord greatly revived under his ministry. But at the very start, as just a 19-year-old young man, Spurgeon had an awful lot of trials. Oh, the press didn't like him, people didn't like him, they didn't like his style of preaching, didn't like the language or the roughness of his speech, and they had complaints about him all the time, but God was pleased to use him. And when visitors came to the church and said to him, well, what was the secret to your ministry? Why did God revive? He would always bring them down to the basement of the church in the Metropolitan Tabernacle before the service. And he would open up the door and he would show them the prayer meeting. And there in the basement of the church, there would be maybe 200-300 people, all either kneeled or sitting on their chairs, and they would be praying. And they would be asking God to bless a minister and save souls that day. You see, the prayer meeting and the prayers of God's people, Spurgeon believed, was the key to his ministry. And he would open the door and he would invite the visitor in, and he would always say, this is the powerhouse meeting of the church. And as we look at the boiler house, this is, we could say, largely the physical powerhouse of the church, yes, but all the more important is the spiritual powerhouse of any church. If there's no prayer, then there is no power. You know, D.L. Moody, he once came from America, came to visit Spurgeon in London, in England, and when he went back to the States, somebody asked him, oh, well, Mr. Moody, did you hear Spurgeon preach? And he said, oh, yes, it was something to hear him preach. But more than that, I heard him pray. I heard him pray, and you want to listen to that man pray. I ask you, are you a prayer warrior? When we look at the room where we've been praying in the annex for so many years now, and we look at the church hall where no doubt we will be praying in future years, oh, that God would saturate this place with prayer. You know, the scriptures tell us, pray without ceasing. We have a job to pray. We have a duty to pray. And I want to remind you, Christian, that every time you come into this church car park and you see the boiler house standing alone at the back, you remember that the powerhouse of this church is the prayer meeting. We love the prayer meeting. We miss the prayer meeting during this time of lockdown. And oh, that God would bless us and answer our prayers, and that we would see souls saved in days to come. Maybe you're listening to this and you don't know about the power of prayer because you're not yet saved. Then, my friend, I urge you, come to Christ. Trust him now. Repent and believe the gospel before it's too late. And then you will know what it is to be a member of the powerhouse meeting of the church, to be a prayer warrior for God. Pray without ceasing. God bless, and see you again soon.